Hello and welcome to this short video about Marxist views of religion. So how does religion benefit the rich? So what is Marx's view of society? We need to start from there. So whereas the functionalists believe that society is based on a consensus, everyone benefits from society, all of the parts of society benefit everyone. So there's what we call reciprocity in our relationships. So you do something for me, I do something for you, and both of us benefit from the relationships in society, whether it's teacher and student, partner and partner, parents and children. The Marxist view is very different. It still would say that all the parts of society contribute to the whole system going. And so it's similar to functionalists. They would agree in that sense that there's a structure to society which follows a predictable pattern of relationships, and religion has an important part to play in that structure. However, the argument from Marxists is that instead of everyone benefiting from the nature of the structure of society, only some particular members of society, the rich members of society, the upper class, benefit from the way in which society is organised, because there's class conflict and exploitation. The rich use the poor unfairly, and this leads to a state of false consciousness as well, where and religion really promotes this, where people don't understand, know, and are not aware that they're exploited, so they actually think society is fair. So if you look at the concepts of meritocracy and individualism, these kinds of concepts are part of a capitalist ideology, a framework of beliefs that convinces us, it's natural and inevitable that there will be rich and poor people, and that this has always been the case, and this will always be the case, and this is immutable. It can't be changed. There is a class system, and whatever your position in that class system, it's basically deserved, because you are either intelligent or unintelligent, strong or weak, lazy or hardworking. Those are big parts of the individualism and meritocracy concepts, which keep us working hard to reach the top of the pyramid. And religion promotes a kind of passive acceptance of that status quo, but also encourages us to be, good Christians or Muslims or Hindus or Sikhs or Buddhists, in a way which, again, makes us kind of keep turning that wheel, like a rat turning a wheel. It makes us keep going in terms of our activities like work, relationships, which we take for granted as normal in capitalism. So Marx predicted that class consciousness would one day be achieved by the working class, and this means they would become aware, and they would wake up to the unfairness and the inequality being unfair in capitalism, and they would therefore create a classless society. They probably rise up against the rich and then overthrow the rich, either violently or non-violently. The working class would realise their exploited position and the unfairness of inequality, and it would be removed. And so religion would become redundant, useless, unimportant, meaningless, and purposeless in that sense. So how does religion act to distort our perception of reality? So this is all about religion being used as an ideological weapon. It's something which is a tool or weapon to brainwash us, to change our minds, to control our thoughts, to make us think distorted thoughts, so to actually change our view of reality, so that we don't have a true, clear view of reality, but rather it's opaque, like looking through a glass which is kind of misted up. We don't have a clear view of the world. So this legitimizes the suffering of the poor. This is what religion does, is that it makes it acceptable for the poor to suffer. And there are many reasons why religion teaches us suffering takes place. So religion teaches us that suffering takes place because it's inevitable, it's given by God, and therefore it's a taboo subject in a sense. It's something we have superstitions about. God is something that we can't violate or challenge, and so therefore we can't challenge inequality, and we have to accept it. Not only do we have to accept it, we also need to carry on working hard and be good people, because suffering is something that's virtuous, so it's good for us to suffer. So, for example, Jesus in the Bible, there's a quote, or what Jesus says is the blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So this idea that those who are weak, downtrodden, poor, disadvantaged, who are suffering as the victims of inequality, they will be rewarded when God, the kingdom of heaven is achieved on earth. And so the kind of traditional religious interpretations of this have often been, we don't need to change life because you'll be rewarded in the afterlife, and that's when you will, go to heaven. There's also another quote where Jesus said, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. And so again, this is saying that if you're virtuous, if you're humble, if you're pure of heart, if you're a good person, again, you're not a rich, greedy person, again, you will enter the kingdom of heaven when you die. And that's how it's been interpreted at any rate. So this creates a state of false consciousness in the poor, in the working class, in the average person, because they don't realise that they're actually exploited by the rich, and they're encouraged to accept their suffering. So Marx and Lenin compare religion to drugs like alcohol and opiates like heroin and opium derived from the poppy plant. So Lenin describes religion as a spiritual gin, something that we drown our kind of sorrows in, which we talk about, drink, alcohol and drugs as an escape from reality. So it's something that intoxicates us, makes us confused, stupid, weak, and therefore we don't challenge society, we don't challenge capitalism. Marx describes religion as an opiate. Opiates tend to, they're drugs which pacify us. So if someone takes an opiate, it kind of soothes us, makes us very peaceful and submissive. And therefore, in that sense, religion is something which keeps us in a state of peace rather than challenging the system. So religion is a result of a loss of control. So what does this mean? So in capitalism, workers are experience a loss of control because they don't have any relationship to the products that they create and make in the factories. They don't have any control over the kind of creative design of the product, and so they're really alienated from what they make, produce and create. So this separation from the creativity in the capitalist process is something that is very upsetting, causes suffering for human beings, according to Marx, because our true nature is to be creative. This is part of a libertarian view. Libertarianism involves the belief that as individuals, we've got the power and the intelligence to be able to make rational decisions and to create and be autonomous beings. In other words, to make choices and decisions which determine our lives, and that creativity is a big part of this, that we have this intelligent ability to create new things. And so being separated from that and not being able to express that true nature means that we are suffering, we are alienated, we're cut off from our nature. What's natural to us is our desire to create. So the role of religion is then to soothe us, as we've said, to make us peaceful, without solving the problem. It doesn't solve the problem of alienation. It merely kind of gives us an illusion of happiness. We imagine we can go to heaven, we can imagine we'll be rewarded by God, but this is just not true, but an illusion, not reality. The problem with this Marxist view is it ignores the positive functions of religion. It ignores the psychological benefits and the social integration that religion can create, which functionalists would argue. Neo-Marxists say it helps that religion can actually have positive functions. So neo-Marxists would say that religion can actually help bring about class consciousness, which is something that Marx didn't focus on as much. He assumed that religion will prevent class consciousness as long as it's there, until such time as people become class conscious. But neo-Marxists say it can help to focus people's minds on helping those who are suffering, to be virtuous in actually assisting others who are suffering, and therefore can help people to fight against unfairness and to fight against greed and selfishness. And that's something the neo-Marxist liberation theology focuses on. So you could bring in that concept and that argument. Althusser says the concept of alienation is not a scientific concept because there is no true self to be alienated. So when we talk about alienation, we're talking about being separated from our true nature. And so Althusser says there is no kind of true nature, therefore nothing to be alienated from, therefore this is not a concept that has any scientific basis. And lastly, you can argue religion is not effective in controlling people, broadly speaking. So in pre-Christian times, people were not controlled by religion, and therefore, we could argue that historically, it's not the case that religion has kept people passive and pacified. In fact, sometimes it has led to people opposing the status quo, such as in Latin America, with again liberation theology.